Well, I'm joined now by our panel, Senior Lecturer in New Zealand Politics, Dr. Lara Greaves, Public Policy Expert and Partner at Senate SHJ, Mark Joyner, and Senior Barrister Criminalising in Criminal Law, Marie Dyhrberg, KC. Welcome.
Indeed. Good morning.
So I wanted to start with hate speech. We have finally seen the hate speech reform legislation on this programme this morning. It's very conservative, very pared back. Have they got it right, Marie?
I don't think they got it right in the first place. And I think the danger hasn't just come from today, what we're seeing, or the last couple of years. For some reason, we have thought that we can legislate against what people say, what they think, and how far they can really go. I think the real concern and the way that we can protect people, certain groups that are targets, is to focus on criminalising incitement to do actual harm to a particular group because of how they belong there. But we need to be robust, we need to have debate, and you cannot gag people or try and control the community. If you want to say something that may be insulting, if you want to say something that may be abusive, you shouldn't be trying to stop that. You may try and educate people, but criminalising it, and then you've got a real problem. What's insulting?
Well, and this is what the government has come up against as well. There are other people that would say that hate speech can lead to hate crimes. Where do you land, Lara?
Well, I'm really interested to see the response from Muslim and Jewish communities in particular to this, and whether they think it goes enough, and then of course the rainbow and disabled communities, their response on the other hand, because I just think that this is an incredibly hard issue. It's incredibly hard from a political perspective as well, because the moment anything gets regulated or anything changes in any way, it gets lifted to that culture wars space, which is not helpful, and that doesn't protect marginalised communities at all either. So
yes,
that's a hard one.
And we've seen that in the space, haven't we? We've seen real angst, real social upheaval around it. Politically, how do you think this has been managed, Mark?
Carefully. So the Minister has heeded the voice of the experts in this in terms of you need to be careful with this stuff, and it is, as Lara says, it's always going to be fraught because it goes right to the heart of democracy in terms of our right to freedom of expression, and one person's hate speech is another person's freedom of expression. But is it an election year? Like, that's what it feels like, that it really has been a carefully managed and almost the bare minimum. There had to be something done. The awful incident that was the Christchurch mosque attacks led to the Royal Commission. This was a recommendation. We had to do something domestically. It is one you want to leave, but this we can't. And on the world stage, our reputation's important there as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I want to talk quickly about the process, though, because we could have wrapped this up back at the time of the Royal Commission, couldn't we? We could have made that adjustment, and the government would have, would be able to point directly to that as an explanation to the New Zealand public. But they've gone on this embarked on a 2-year process, and at the end of it landed right back where they started, Marie.
Yes, and legally it was far too wide. And of course you saw these incredible circumstances and situations in the UK of recent times where the police have had to withdraw the most incredibly stupid and facetious prosecutions. And although some got publicity because they were so outrageous, unfortunately thousands got caught by saying, I only insulted somebody, and most of us were sitting there saying it shouldn't be criminal law, you shouldn't criminalise somebody who wants to insult somebody.
Well, National says that it does not support even this, even this small change recommended by the Royal Commission. Is it trying to have it, but it won't repeal it either? So is it trying to have it both ways?
Oh, that's a hard one. And I think even going back to sort of what you're saying before about the 2-year window, it would be a bit ironic if we're talking about speech and then we don't give people speech on the bill.
Certainly.
I think that National's kind of hitting on a point there where there are quite a few areas where Labor kind of do need to rip the Band-Aid off and get it done and get something out of the way before election year, before it can become even more of a contested space. I'd say, yeah, hate speech and free waters are 2 of those areas. Like, finish it, move on, get it done, move on, election year.
You need to feel sorry for your viewers there. So the Minister is repeatedly calling it a small adjustment, and then Paul Goldsmith comes on and sees this is significant. So, and messaging with such a divisive and high public interest issue like this is so important. And you pressed the Minister on last year's consultation, which did fall flat in terms of consistency and clarity of message. And what we need going forward with this is that exactly. Consistency and clarity of message that's grounded in the intent.
Yes, an honest assessment, I suppose, of where we're at in this process, not spin or politics. I want to talk to you about military boot camps. They're back. Who knew we're going to reboot boot camps? What do you think, Lara?
Well, they're back actually at a time where Jacinda Ardern is looking presidential on the world stage. So to me, that timing is a bit convenient, because one of the critiques people have been levelling at Ardern is that she will go off. She will be an international superstar. She is an international superstar. So to bring it back to domestic issues and to bring things back to crime, while I don't think boot camps is very well supported by evidence, I think it was a good move by National to move things back to the domestic space this week.
Well, the numbers struck me, actually, when thinking about this. We're talking about 60 15 to 17-year-olds and about a dozen 10-year-olds that will get into that worst offender group, Marie. Can we not, why can't we seem to get a handle on these sort of 70-odd kids that are causing so much mayhem, according to National?
It's how you handle them, and when you start seeing the almost punitive, hard-line policy that is going to come behind these military boot camps, so that you are taking damaged children, damaged teenagers, putting them into another situation where they are isolated, they are cut off from their family, no matter how bad their family is, work with them. If you can just take these 70 main offenders, don't let them get into a situation where they can sit around, plot and plan how they could be better criminals, because that's what's going to happen. Work with the families, put the resources there, but really aim at health. Teach them how to have processes and discipline, teamwork, so that they can look after their mates. A bit like that outward bound philosophy, isn't it? Over long term, and it used to happen with John De Silva's program, and put them back into a much better environment, which means you've got to include the families as well.
Community seems really important. Yes. What do you think, Mark, in terms of what Labor's doing? It's still hard to pin down a policy, because that is the great benefit of this policy by National, isn't it? It says boot camps.
Very visual.
Very visual.
I mean, the ram raids are very visual, boot camps are very visual. It's clever politics. And what it also is a direct challenge to Labor's politics of kindness. So what we've seen is that becomes synonymous with Labor's greatest asset, that being Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, that discourse, the political discourse of kindness. And I think we'll likely see, as we go into election year, a lot more of this from National in terms of headline policy that is a direct contrast to that politics of kindness.
Is this what the Defence Force should be doing?
Well, look, I kind of do work a little bit in this space, having a PhD in psychology and with a lot of people in that adolescent mental health space, and it's just really, like, overall not good. Like, they haven't found experts, and I'm sure there are experts out there. We know that in our academic community there are probably some experts that would agree with this, but they haven't even found them to front. Like, surely you can find someone to come forward. In terms of the Defence Force, I mean, we haven't necessarily heard from them. I think Goldsmith and that are justified in saying you can't exactly go knock on the door of the Defence Force and ask them to give feedback on a policy. But, it's just... I really like Luke Malvis's quote of the reheated Big Mac.
Never tastes quite the same. I want to really quickly touch on the Prime Minister. We have seen her meeting with Xi Jinping overnight. She has raised the issues like China using its influence with Russia, for example, in the war in Ukraine, and with North Korea. So she's ticked those boxes. She got 52 minutes with him. It's a long time. Can we call it a success? What are your thoughts, Marie?
Well, I think the world needs China in it. And China outside the world in other countries is a very dangerous space. So I think she treated the balance very, very well, because she did not back down on saying human rights is critical for us and you don't measure up. So she didn't back down on that message. But she's also strengthened. We do want to keep talking about trade and talking about any other relationships we can have. And I think following what he did to poor Mr. Trudeau, I would think, yes. And I think she did it extremely well with somebody who's extremely powerful.
The message was received loud and clear. And maybe that visit to Beijing as well. We are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us here on the panel this morning and for your thoughts and analysis.